Welcome to Hoda's Career Info, the program where career professionals from across the globe meet to empower you to succeed. My name is Hoda, and today's guest is Dr. Dorothy Siminovitch.
Awareness intelligence, it's about how you use your awareness. And when you use your awareness in the moment that is needed, you feel intelligent. Share your dream with others. They will remind you of what you continue to want to dream. The Gestalt approach offers a window in how to manage the complexity of life. Look to see who can help you, and remember that one day you're going to be one of those people.
Thank you for joining me in Hoda's Career Info, your career program where guests from across the globe share career tips and personal stories to help you successfully navigate your career. Watch, listen, and learn. Remember to like, subscribe, share, and follow me on social media for more career info. More importantly, make sure you have that very important career conversation with a career professional. Dr. Dorothy Siminovitch is a master certified coach and founder and president of Gestalt Coaching Works, LLC. She is an international coach, consultant, speaker, and author. And I'm pleased to have her join me today. Dorothy is the founder and co-owner of the Gestalt Coaching Program in Istanbul, an ICF coach training program, which she serves as director of training and as faculty. She is co-founder of the Gestalt Center for Coaching, which delivers ICF accredited coach training workshops and extended programs internationally. She has recently joined the Hudson Coaching Institute as faculty for a core coaching program. Dorothy specializes in coaching for signature awareness of one's presence, leadership peak performance, overcoming derailment, and working with high-performance leaders, groups, and teams. She presents additional training and development opportunities to ICF conferences and chapters, and by invitation to commercial and nonprofit organizations worldwide. Her book, which we will be talking about today, titled A Gestalt Coaching Primer, The Path Toward Awareness Intelligence, is recognized as a profound introduction to professional coaching for those well-practiced and novices alike. She is co-developer and co-author of the Awareness 2020 Leadership Assessment Instrument, a quantitative analysis of leaders' awareness and the demonstrated ROI benefits of the self-aware leader. She was recently honored by the ICF Toronto chapter with the 2023 Lifetime Achievement Award in Coaching. Engaging and observant, Dorothy practices a passionate commitment to being aware in the moment, to bringing her transformational presence to bear in every encounter, and to perceiving and offering new possibilities and choices. Thank you for joining me and Dr. Siminovitch. Stay tuned as Dorothy talks about Gestalt coaching, her term, awareness intelligence, and so much more. Thank you, Dr. Dorothy Siminovitch, for joining me today in Hoda's Career Info. It's a pleasure to have you on this program.
Thank you. Me too. Thank you.
Dorothy, right away, the first question I ask everybody who comes on this program is to share a personal definition of a career term that reflects the work that they do.
Of a career term that defines the work that I do. Of a career term, I'm going to say my career term that I use. And I actually wrote this in my sub part of my book, the second part of the title. My career term for me is awareness intelligence, because I started really working very strongly as a Gestalt-based coach. It's hard to believe in 1996 when it was just starting at the ICF and little me at the time. And I say little me because Gestalt coaching was not really a thing, a concept in the world. And I was basically saying it could be. It had value, it had possibility. It was an umbrella where highly functional, you know, people who consider themselves ordinary to extraordinary could find a learning place. But awareness intelligence, because Gestalt language was for so many people vague and confusing, I came up with, listen, it's about how you use your awareness. And when you use your awareness in the moment that is needed, you feel intelligent. And when you are aware of something and you ignored because it wasn't, you said timing, or because you were distracted, you feel regret. And from the difference from intelligent to regret, well, that's the story. So when I say to people, do you feel intelligent with your awareness? Everyone gets it. They'd say either a yes or a slow no. And it communicates kind of reflection to people. Like they say, oh, awareness, intelligence. And immediately people kind of take that term. And I find that fascinating.
I am all for awareness, awareness of everything that we do, why we did it and how we did it. So it's definitely a great term. And it really reflects the work that you do, absolutely. And we're going to talk about your work today. And I feel it does reflect it. Thank you for introducing everyone to this term.
Thank
The
you.
next question always, Dr. Dorothy, is to ask you to share your personal story, just so the audience can envision how their story could potentially evolve, and embedded within that story, a message, if you can, that you'd like to send by being here on this program.
Well, first of all, Hoda, again, thank you for, it feels like a luxury to talk about one's life. And I encourage that luxury to everyone. First of all, may everyone feel that their life has value, that sharing the story of their life will inspire everyone. I think that's a little piece of why I think perhaps I can do this with you, because I originally am from Montreal, moved to Cleveland when my husband went and did a residency. And of course, I said, oh, I have to study, that's a thing. And I became a clinical psychologist. And then I said, oh, no, people don't think I know enough unless I have a PhD. Okay, let me get that PhD. I got a PhD in organizational behavior because I wanted to kind of bring some understanding to organizations. And what I discovered is when I would speak to people about flow charts and organizational activities, they were not excited. So I thought, okay, this is not really inspiring. And I got interested in coaching largely as an outcome of one of my clients who got lost in her studies in graduate school and wanted to quit. And I said, I'm going to be able to help you. And she said, why now? And I said, because I know that I can, and I'm not sure other people will. Uh, and I said, you're too smart to get lost. And actually, that was one way in which I said, but I'm not going to be your therapist. I'm going to be your coach, because you don't need a therapist. The greatest thing for you is to arrive at your goals. I mean, I could say that was plain English. It was not embedded in concepts that were foreign. And sure enough, by the way, Hoda, she finished, walked away with a master's degree and then went to was called Union Graduate School and asked me to be on her dissertation. She's now a PhD. But from there, I started saying, okay, this coaching thing, let me look at that. And not only did I become kind of me in Gestalt coaching, we became known. But when there was a challenge at the Gestalt Institute of Cleveland, which was a crazy story, it should not have happened. But that's the way leadership challenges are. You think, are you serious? People acting badly? Are you serious? Well, yes, and good people acted badly. And then I said, why? Why should I suffer? I have wonderful colleagues in Istanbul. I'm going to bring this program to them, and we're going to joint venture. And we created this program in Istanbul, which is now in its 15th year. And while I was in Istanbul, I love what we can learn from another culture. And people would always say, "Are you Turkish?" And I'd say, "Well, it turned out that I have something to do with the Turkish people. Thank you." And what I discovered about them that was a gift to me was that one of the ways of becoming a modern culture from an ancient culture is to keep evolving. And they have certainly kept evolving. And they insisted, they said, "Don't you have a book?" I said, "Well, I think I could do a book." I did a book. Within a year of that book, they said, "Don't you think we could translate it into Turkish?" I said, "Well, all right." And so these things started happening. And people would say to me, outside, like in North America, "Are you Turkish?" And they couldn't put the pieces of I want to say, my gestalt together. Gestalt means the kind of integrated picture of the whole from all these different parts. Let's see, you're Canadian, you lived in Cleveland. How did you get to Turkey? It was just too many things. And I think the message for me and for anyone listening, Hoda, is, do you have something you really believe in? That's the first thing. Do you see that something of value going forward in the future? How does it look to you? Because that's what we know. Vision pulls you forward. And can you continue to believe just enough that you feel engaged? Engaged and a little bit excited. Because if you're not, nobody's going to want to join you. No one's going to say, "Can you do a podcast with me?" They're going to say, and that's actually, do you believe in something? Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who passed away a few years ago, she was a Supreme Court judge, tiny little woman. She said, "Have a purpose bigger than you." And I'd say I had a purpose bigger than me, which was Gestalt coaching. I could share that with people. My faculty in Istanbul, all of them have, except for one person, are master certified coaches. And I say to myself, isn't this marvelous to be with brilliant people? And so we share your dream with others. They will remind you of what you continue to want to dream. And I think that that's the lesson. So even when I recently met someone from Montreal, where I'm originally from, they said to me, "How did you do that?" And I said, "Well, that's the story." So that's my story a little bit. I think I continue to share. And Hoda, is so interesting right now. I will say this to you. Right now, yesterday I did a podcast, a mentor supervision session with wonderful people from South Africa. South Africa, Hoda. Me in South Africa. In 3 weeks, I'm going to Istanbul. In next week, I'm going to California to Hudson Coaching School. And all of this started with my dream of coaching, which my belief of coaching, with my interest in other people who shared their values. So the vision, the interest, the inspiration, and one more thing, look for people you can share your values and dream with, and then you will grow.
Very, very inspiring. And I do sense your passion. And, in our first call, I'm like, yes, I sense your excitement. I can see how you got to where you are today. Congratulations on that. You did mention the Gestalt-based coaching. You did write the book, Gestalt Coaching Primer, The Path Toward Awareness Intelligence. So you kind of introduced us a little bit to the awareness intelligence concept. If I was a new coach today, so someone trying to enter the coaching field, what can you tell us about the Gestalt method?
Well, first of all, if someone is interested in coaching, that's the first thing I want to do is welcome them. And I think I would say that the Gestalt approach is an easy to experience approach because, it's been around for more than 60 years as a way of understanding how we see the world and how we act towards the world. So what's the Gestalt approach? First of all, it was rooted in originally perceptual psychology. The idea of it is how you look at the world has more to do with who you are than the actual object. So you say to yourself, "Well, what does that mean?" Well, I could look at something and see it as, "Oh, that's very interesting. Look at that. Well, I think that we could do something with that." And someone could look at that same visual and say, "Oh, that's terrible." "Oh, that's not organized well. And I think we have to change it." And so and the question becomes, well, who's right? And in today's world, Hoda, that is a very big question. Who is right about their definition of reality? Is the way I look at the world my way correct, or is it your way? And I think that very issue, who am I and how do we look at the world? What's our awareness, is right off the bat a big issue everywhere in the world. It's a big issue in American politics, in Canadian politics, in the Middle East. I don't even want to touch that right now because it's so painful. Between Russia and Ukraine, well, it just goes on. So it grows. So the very first thing that I really want to say to people about the Gestalt approach is it is an approach that welcomes you to, one, know how you see the world. And awareness is a very big part of learning. How are you seeing it? How are you not seeing it? The second part of it is, what is your mindset or your expectation that we can do something about that? We have a phrase that's called equifinality, which means there are many different ways of looking at a situation. Do you see it as, or, Carol Dweck in California calls it, as a closed story or as an open story? And I think the Gestalt approach depends on who you're working with, but the Gestalt approach actually has an open possibility. And that invites people to go, okay, what can we do with this? So it gets people engaged in, what do you see experientially? And also, what do you want to even look at? Is there something about how your old way stops you from something, or how you don't know how to go forward? So the Gestalt approach is a theory that helps people with their awareness, with their outdated resistances. So often people come and say, I want to learn something, but I keep thinking that I can't. Huh? And we go, oh, well, that's interesting. That little I can't, could we work with that? Are you interested? And then what we would do is we would invite people into kind of a conversation where we would collaboratively explore possibility, like a little conversation that we're having. And we'd say, okay, now close your eyes and imagine if you could. What would that look like? And then we'd say, okay, come back. When you thought you could, what did that look like? And then we'd say to people, well, how different is that from where you can't? What's the distance between what you can and what you can't do? And that becomes another little experiment. And then we'd say, okay, we only have X minutes. What did you learn about this little visit between you could and you can't? And Hoda, the interesting thing is more people see possibilities when they slow down with another person to review their inner geography of the prisons that they didn't know they could open.
I love that. I love that.
And
I love how you wrapped it up.
Well, of course, the wrap up is like everything, the closure is a place of learning. So I want to say that this is a place for really paying attention to the obvious. Sometimes when you see someone and you say, oh, I love how your pearls are on your neck. And you say, well, thank you. The pearls were always there, as long as we're sitting, but not until I say, I love how they're sitting there. Did you smile at something? Our recognition of something brings us something more into life. And the Gestalt approach is about recognizing the what doesn't work, the what does work, the what could work, and the new work. And that's actually how we build learning possibilities. And so very often people say, oh, the Gestalt approach is like magic. Well, I'm actually against saying that because people then think, oh, it's magical. What the outcome is when people feel they can, and an hour before felt that they couldn't, that feels like magic. But how we got there is by paying attention to that old road of I can't, with the self-liberation of what would it look like if I could. And Hoda, that kind of reflection with company of the coach, with little disturbing questions. So we always say, one of my colleagues, Marcia Reynolds, has a wonderful book called The Zone of Disturbance. I mean, I might be changing the title now. Oh, the discomfort zone. So we always ask our clients, do I have your permission to disturb you? Because if you really are learning something new, we say to people, if you don't have any emotion, you're not really going to be looking at something that you need to learn, because learning is always a little awkward. So we invite the clients into, we want to co-create a safe place to look at. This might be uncomfortable to look at. Let's look at it. And by the way, Hoda, it's not just about something bad that's uncomfortable. It could be something great. You know, you have to do a presentation in front of 100 people, 500 people, 1,000 people. And you know what? You don't know how to handle the excitement. You don't have how, that's a great, wonderful little project to have a little coaching around, because we do greatness coaching, we do problem coaching, we do career coaching, and we look at this little Gestalt theory and practice, how to be engaged, experiential, how to co-create learning experiments, and also how to pull the learning into this, what can you learn and go forward with. And you know, the outcome of this whole story that you asked me, I think the Gestalt approach offers a window in how to manage the complexity of life. So many moving parts.
I love though that you ask the permission, because
Yes.
you kind of got them to sign the contract and you think they're coming in ready to, step out of their comfort zone. That's why they came to a coach.
Well, you know, it's so interesting. I think as of now, you know, I'm on LinkedIn. You know, LinkedIn is an overwhelming cornucopia of possibilities. There's always something happen, a webinar, a talk, a book. You know, it's a lot of wonderfulness. But as of this moment, I think somewhere Amy Edmondson, who wrote this wonderful book on the right kind of failure and, you know, fearless organization, she really makes learning from failure a great learning possibility. And I think we need to really own that first of all, we need to ask permission, and then people will feel safer to look at something. Typically, they hide. I do too, you know, I think, can I really talk to you about this? Because I feel a little kind of vulnerable. Like I always tell people in this last year, I've been very transparent about I have to do digital improvement. Because if you're not comfortable with computers, stay home, close your computer. And it's hard because, you know, so many things are happening that I'm constantly saying to people, so you did this by how? Work with me. And that is a very vulnerable thing. And so how do we share our vulnerabilities? And I think for coaches, it's such a tiny question. Can we go there? Can I bother you? It's okay if I bother you. And by the way, if it's too much, let me know, we can stop. So small, so big.
Absolutely, absolutely. Very important question. I love how you detailed the Gestalt coaching method, and I appreciate that. Anybody interested in it, I guess, should go check out your book as well and see what they can learn from it.
You know, Hoda, it's very interesting about that little book. Took a long time to write it, I have to say. And the interesting thing always about the Gestalt approach is people get intimidated by it, strangely enough, because it's not really formulaic. It's awareness. Okay, everything is awareness. Okay, then what are we going to pay attention to? Okay, choice. And then what are we going to do? Okay, it's kind of a unit of work. I mean, so there's a lot of words around it. And I thought to myself, okay, write this in as simple English as possible. Because very often when we use, like, I don't know, people think I have to use the most complicated English possible. It's hard to read. So people always say, oh, you know, it's kind of easy to read. And I said, yes, that was the intention. But the fascinating thing is that many other Gestalt programs in the world use that book, which is stunning to me. That's the first thing. The second thing is that many non-Gestalt programs use that. So I started working at Hudson Institute of Coaching in Santa Barbara, and I consider them the Harvard of coaching, actually. They introduced that book, and I thought, isn't that interesting? So I think it's an honor for me, but it says something about how Gestalt focuses on process. And in today's world, like even now, you know, we organize that we start our interview late. The viewer doesn't know that, but it's the idea that we could be in the moment, adaptive to what is needed. And I think that's what process is. And the Gestalt approach, I think of it very often, I love improv, how people are in the moment. Gestalt training teaches you how to be in the improv of life.
When I think improv, I'm thinking awareness, of course, because you
That's
gotta
right.
be on the spot, right?
Right.
Always ready to see what
That's,
you can
that's,
come
that's
up with.
It's absolutely true. And I think, so for people like, so, like I have colleagues and some colleagues just would say, well, what do you think? And they're saying, no, I'm paying attention. And you don't have to ask anything because you know that they're just paying attention and they'll let you know when they have something. So it's kind of interesting, the people that know how to use awareness, because they turn up with a kind of presence that says, I'm here and I'm watching. And other people know, okay, well, they're watching. What are they watching? So you could say to a person, I'm just going to watch until I have something to say. Becomes very interesting. And so most people are so worried about silence. And Gestalt training tells us how to use silence, how to use observation, how to pay attention to the moment, how to tell people I'm watching something different. It gives us a lot of options. And I think in today's world, I say to people, everybody has to study mindfulness because we easily are losing our way. Nobody can pay attention anymore. They say that the attention span that is the norm is equal to a goldfish, 8 seconds. We get distracted. So if you think about it, that's actually quite concerning. So how to pay attention now really helps us stay focused, also able to not get distracted from what is important. Or like I know I live in the world of everybody is either a phone call or come this or watch this, and how to maintain your focus is one of the great challenges in our world. Again, Gestalt training actually gives us this, and it gives us an understanding of how to speak to people about the moment without apology. Like, people say, well, you're not presenting this talk that you said you were going to do, or we have this lecture, whatever. You could say to everybody, I know, but we need to, for 3 seconds, 3 minutes, just get centered because I feel there's too much noise. A number of years ago, I was invited to a conference. It was a lovely meeting in Toronto, and all the speakers had taken a little bit too long. They all went over their time. So by the time it came to me, instead of having 20 minutes, like, like a little TED Talk, 20 minutes, I had only 5. And I said to them, all right, then perhaps we will do it in the afternoon. They said, no, 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 Dorothy, you should just do it in 5 minutes. You could do it in 5 minutes. And I thought, wow, that's bad. But then I thought, okay, what can you do in 5 minutes? And I got up and they were expecting me to rush and everything. I said, I have 5 minutes. Let's use the first 2 of them just to breathe together. They looked at each other. She asked, asking us to breathe. So we did a little centering breathing exercise. And I said, I have 3 minutes. These are the top 3 things I want you to know. And we closed. And Hoda, that's what everyone remembered. They remembered she even still asked us to get centered. And then they said, and I really heard her.
I believe that because
Right.
when you've got 3 minutes, I can, everybody can focus on that, especially with you giving them those 2 minutes of let's just refocus and take a breath.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah. 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 Good for you.
it was
Very
good.
challenging to be in that position.
Yeah, memorable actually. Like it, and that's the other thing, maybe some of the best moments. I mean, maybe that's also what has this taught me. Some of the best moments, again, there's a lot of talk in the world about be authentic. And then the great Brene Brown says, be vulnerable. First of all, to be vulnerable authentically is very, very scary. Really, you want me to tell you how I'm really, really feeling? Oh, please. But what's interesting about that is if you can, in the moment, decide, what is it I really want to share? You don't have to share everything, but whatever you want to share has to be real. Well, that's the moment that people go, I have to listen to her. So it's not that we want to share everything. but we want to say something. I remember I was once working in a situation and I was confronted by a young student in the program who was just irritated. I stood up and I would give feedback. And actually, he was a troublemaker. He was a really, as we say, bad boy. He was 28 years old, about, very charismatic, and he wanted to be the center of everything. Hello? And I would stand up and I'd have authority, and then, well, at a certain point, he confronted me. He said, "Oh, there she is again speaking." And he did it in such a terrible way. I thought, that's it, I'm dead. And everybody in this workshop also thought, workshop is over. Look, she's never going to figure out how to come back. And I thought, we're dead. And the interesting thing about that, Hoda, was it was like 5 seconds of total inner terror. And I thought to myself, what can I do something? What can I do? Join him. And join him is a value, like I think when we join people, we normalize the moment, we make them less of a monster. We kind of, diffuse the situation. And the interesting thing is, I remember it was like 5 seconds, and all of a sudden, I got it. I stood up and I looked at him and I said to him, that was wonderful what you said. I think you're right. I am really disturbing you. Thank you. Because the truth is, I want to give my opinion. And, you don't really like that. And you're right, because actually it's happening everywhere in the world. The government is changing. No one knows how to trust anybody. And look, even in this little room, Madam Dr. Dorothy is giving you, and it's irritating. And I looked at everybody. I said, so right now, you need to join him, everybody. We need to not be afraid. We need to calm down. I think we should take a 5-minute break. Hoda. It was a turning point because the things that frighten us, well, first of all, may we never really be terrified, not like a car coming at you, but human behavior today is, you know, everyone's scared. Everybody's easily traumatizing themselves. They're scared of news, they're scared of the economy, they're scared of, oh, after COVID, we're all changed, I think. So we have to come down together. I think we have to breathe together. We have to use human practices to co-inquire and say to each other, what's happening? Pause. Hear you. Pause. What do you think we should do? Really listen to each other in a way that I think human beings, whether they're in the workplace or, volunteer groups or boards, we hear each other. People are not even hearing each other enough. And again, this is about process. I read an article, I think it was by Seth Godin. He's a wonderful writer, and he's provocative always, which I love about him. But he says soft skills, the way we behave to each other, the signals we give, they shouldn't be called soft skills, because those are the skills that we look to decide if I should continue with you. How you are with me, your kind of social cues, your list, those are the actual, they may not be technical, but they are the green light of our relationship. They're the red light or they're the green light.
And I really appreciate your willingness to simplify the Gestalt coaching method. I know it's more complicated than that. And thank you for sharing your examples to show that, it's not success all the way. There's going to be these moments where we question ourselves and the work that we do.
Yes, absolutely. And I think if they're not, then people are just pretending.
So I love this, Dorothy, but I do want to take us to a different question, because there's something else I want to congratulate you on. Besides writing the book, I want to congratulate you on receiving the Lifetime Achievement Award in Coaching from the International Coaching Federation in Toronto. So congratulations on that. With that award, now you have another explanation to do for us. Is, in your opinion, what would make a great coach?
Hoda, first of all, when we met, I didn't say to you, what kind of program did you go to? When you told me you were a coach, I was thrilled. And when you told me you do career coaching, I was fascinating. So first of all, be interested in other people, be interested in other schools. I don't think many years ago, someone said, I think it was Charles Hampton Turner, he's kind of a modern philosopher, he was quite lovely. And he said, the map is not the territory. which means all of us have maps and none of us, it's like the old, map creators of old, you know, I love old maps, but old maps always, some of them were true and some of them were like, the ones that said the map, the world is square, those maps were really wrong. Or at the edge of the map there was a demon. So in a way, like the different approaches, I was probably from 96 to 2002 really going around North America looking at various schools, and there are various schools that I say they're wonderful, like Newfield was a wonderful school for me because I loved Julio Olaya, who's from Chile, and he brought this kind of South American intellectualism, joyfulness that you couldn't not be affected by. I worked with Marsha Reynolds, who's quite famous because she's only done 5 books. Her 5th book is coming out. I say only just to make it clear that she's a phenom. I've worked with W. Bex, who brings in a whole range of different coaches in the world, and they offer kind of a menu of people to listen to coaching for 2 weeks, 10 days for free, and then but I think actually we need to be influenced by what is out there that I may want to take from. So from the Newfield people, honestly, I took joyfulness because I felt that I think that Western, particularly North Americans, they didn't have enough joyfulness to me. Now there's more room for, the Stanford ladies wrote a wonderful book on Take Humor Seriousness, one of the best books out there. But I actually got that from Julio Olaya. He'd say to me, like this, he'd say, Dorothy, you're so, intense. And I'd say, Julio, and what are you? Very colorful in a human, joyful way. I also think the Hudson people have done wonderful research and publications on life development, and their maps, the cycle of renewal, is a wonderful map for people going through transitions. That is so worthy of knowing. I recommend it to everyone. And then they do a wonderful workshop called Life Forward about next steps. So I think that that's an excellent thing to know. I think the Adler people also have done wonderful things about from inadequacy to possibilities. Alfred Adler really had a theory that said, from your weakness, you can create new possibilities, which is extraordinary, actually. Maybe that's the life experience in some ways. I know people from my youth that would never have imagined of what I kind of turned out to be. And I know that, by the way, I don't even, comparing it. But then I think, the award for me was special, Hoda, because Toronto is my adopted, I would say, 4th city. I consider Montreal home. Cleveland was a home. Istanbul, it's the community of Istanbul feels home to me always. It's a very wonderful, joyful, incredible community. So Toronto was a new kind of wonderful place that my husband and I live in, but for them as an adopted city to give me this award said to me, oh, my journey was interesting to them. One, the global journey. So I think today the question is, does my coaching work for this group and other groups? I think that today we're looking at have a theory that understands cultural differences, because today's world is, people are looking at diversity, equity, and inclusion. And honestly, Hoda, everyone better do that. Because even if you're in Calgary, like I believe you're in Calgary, or you're coming for a while, I worked in Des Moines. I had a wonderful contract in Des Moines, Iowa. And you know what? I used to be amazed at all the people I would meet who had immigrated there. Used to just amaze me from all different parts of the world. So today we need a theory that says, I see you across cultural differences. Very important. I have a way of understanding my presence across cultural differences. So I do think the ICF competency model even though, I don't always think we have to, like, I don't say, I have very many colleagues who are not ICF certified. I'm an ICF MCC coach, and some of my most famous colleagues are not ICF certified. And I say to them, you're famous because you're great. And you don't have to know these ICF competencies. But for people starting in coaching, to get back to your question, I say to many people, either be certified in the ICF model or maybe it's the EMCC model, but you need a model that has recognition in the world to also have in your closet of validation. So if you think as a young coach coming on, or as a coach, like I'm going to be meeting with somebody on Thursday who is kind of famous in her world as a consultant. I think she really is marvelous. And yet she wants to get certified. And she probably has to use her his experience to apply via a different method, a non-ICF accredited program. For her, she's already great. To support her in her application to the ICF is my task. But I want to say to people, have a theory that really is strong, that has cultural range to allow people to feel a place of inclusion. So important. I'm going to be giving a talk to some group, and I'm going to say to this group, I'm not talking about politics, not because I can't, but because it's polarizing. I am going to talk to you about all being in the human condition where you make a difference in the world and your job is not to burn out. Because we know that coaches and therapists, as they give, they can also burn out, especially in war-torn countries. So I think have a theory that works also for the new coming on coach. Belong to an ICF chapter for sure, or another comparable group. And some people are really getting into be mentored, be supervised. Well, I know that's troublesome because money is involved, but you don't have to have money involved. Maybe you can get some things that are more free than, like ICF does a lot of free things, and then they give a little certificate 1.5. You can collect them. And so then you can also collect them in your list of things. So when you want to apply for the future for something. And so those are the ways. And also I do think for the coming on coach who wants really to sturdy themselves with trustworthy learning, decide what 3 or 4 people, and not more than that because you can get overwhelmed, you might turn to and say, what do you think about this? Can you make some suggestions for me? Ask your questions and then curate your own answers. See what's good for you, so that you feel also not overwhelmed in your journey, but more supported. Hoda, I didn't know to do that when I was starting out. And maybe that's why when people call me up and ask me, I always give advice now, not advice what you should do, but advice about, oh, you might want to look at this, and oh, you might want to look at that, or oh, you might want to come to this. We've had people that have come to our teleclasses for the ICF because we give teleclasses in the core competencies in our online program. We've had people from previous training programs like 10 years before, 15 years before, call me up and say, I didn't apply. What do you think I can do? And I'll say, come join us for our teleclass series. It's true you're not in this class, but everyone's going to be nice to you because you're lovely and because they understand they are on the same journey you are. And Hoda, wonderful things have happened. People have gone and gotten their credentials, and so they remember me as Dorothy can help you. I'd say to the young coach is look to see who can help you, and remember that one day you're going to be one of those people.
Absolutely. And you definitely are, Dorothy. Thank you so much for this wonderful advice. I do have one last question for you, Dorothy.
Okay.
Unless you want to add something, go ahead if you feel you
Well,
wanted
yeah,
to.
but I have to talk about that award in a way that is so touching to me. I had joint ventured with someone to do kind of an online survey, a corporate survey about awareness, all these things, all these kind of, oh, I'll try this, I'll try this, learning. It's always about learning. And the Adler group had asked me to do a presentation on their learning day because they have learning days to their alumni group. And when I got there, they said, "Okay, Dorothy, do you have a free gift to give?" Well, it was before my book came out, so I didn't have that, and I didn't have any copies of the articles that I had in Choice magazine. I had, I came just myself. So they said, "Well, what could you give?" And I said, "Oh, well, I think I can give a a free seat in one of my upcoming workshops." I had a workshop on presence, or it was a Gestalt coaching workshop. I said, "I'll do this." So the person that pulled it, Hoda, she was very excited. She was a lovely woman. She pulled it. She came to the workshop. At the time, she was not working. She said, "Because my life is in terrible transition." I said, "Oh, we are going to support you. This is going to be the workshop in this moment." And sure enough, that was true. A year later, the same woman said, she sent me an email. She said, I'm now working for the ICF chapter in Toronto. I said, "Fantastic." And she said, "I'm coaching." I said, "Fantastic." 2 years later, she sent me a notice and said, "I am now president of the ICF chapter." And I said, "Fantastic." And why I'm telling the story is Jane Radin is the person who nominated me for this award because of that, that whole story. And I think be ready to share and be generous with others, period.
Wonderful advice, and what an example. You never know.
Truly never know, because it's actually an act of generosity when someone nominates you. It's extra work, for them.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. They do have to fill out a form and justify the reasons for choosing you. So
Quite exhaustive. Yes.
I know you have a lot of projects going on, Dorothy, and I was wondering if you could share with us one of them that shows that you're stepping out of your comfort zone. Just again, to give examples of how when we think we're successful, we're still stepping out of our comfort zone.
Hoda, that's what a wonderful question. And I think actually it feels like it's always everything is kind of a demanding. But I think one of the things that's coming up is I'm going to be in Santa Barbara. Well, first of all, it's these next months. That's probably a challenge. I'm in Santa Barbara in a week, and then I'm doing 2 weeks there back and forth, and then coming back and doing the Gestalt program, and then flying off to Istanbul for our Gestalt group program, and then coming back and a month later flying off to South Africa. And the South Africa program probably is the program that right now is my new thing because it's far away and yet not far. It's a world that I think has been inspiring to the rest of the world ever since Nelson Mandela was elected, because I think he was the voice for overcoming oppression and democracy in a different voice. And we are, because of managing the financials of what's going on, so I came up with a different learning model for them, that the group would learn team coaching skills as a group. And we've been practicing that as a mentor coaching group. So we've had 2 sessions. We're going to have 3 more until I go there. And then we're going to practice doing that. And then we're going to have the team training. And I think what that is, Hoda, it's a combination of this Zoom format. It's a combination of being able to do very intimate work on Zoom. And it's interesting. By the time I get there, we already know each other. And I think that that's kind of the new format, to use digital technology in a hybrid way, like we're doing in the corporate environment. And I guess for me, the fact that I'm doing it, as a person, as a baby boomer doing digital work in this deep way, that is a stretch. And I say to everybody, you can too. You can do this. And also in today's world, anything that goes around the world that brings us together, I think is very inspiring in the world. Because when was that event in Japan when they had the event at Fujiyama where the tidal wave came in? It was so devastating. And what they discovered is that parts of the Fujiyama nuclear kind of factory were washing up on the coast of California. And if there's anything that reminds us that the human condition, we are all interconnected, that did. And I think, so for me, the work with South Africa, that is so far away. I think it's like after Singapore, which I also went to, South Africa feels the furthest. And so that feels exciting. Other projects feel exciting. And I think, that's also, Hoda, I think it's because Gestalt coaching is a vision bigger than me.
Absolutely. And congratulations on that. Stepping out of your comfort zone and
Yes.
showing us how to do it. Your global vision is so important. We cannot escape it. It's with technology, global vision is important in everything we do.
And doable and more doable. It's more when my mother passed away, which was 4 years ago, she had many languages, but Russian was one of her languages. And I had said when she became ill, I said, "Oh, mommy, I could take Russian classes with you," because my mother she always corrected me. So I could never learn with her because she'd say, no. I'd say, okay, now we're going to learn Russian. And she said to me, too late. And I thought, oh, too late. And yet I've gotten invitations from Russia to come and kind of do teleclasses. And I think, isn't that interesting? So our world now is more interconnected. And whether we go there, they will come to us. And sometimes they will come to us because they immigrate into our world. They show up in a teleclass. And people also, coaching is this great democratic phenomenon. Anybody can enter it if you're in good faith, if you're ethical, if you want to make a difference, govern yourself according to certain kind of human interaction norms, do no harm, join the person in their goal. But I think more people, there's a reason why coaching has grown so hugely. And I think we who are interested in making the world better can really use coaching in that direction.
It's such an important work we do, I believe. And that ethical part is so important because it can take coaching in a different direction if we're not careful.
Yeah, we're going to be learning more about that for sure. I think that, people didn't even realize, it used to be confidentiality. Now it's how are you presenting yourself? How are you using technology? So it's more books now are being written on ethical practice because now that the profession is growing, that's become more of a thing to understand.
Absolutely. Unfortunately, Dorothy, it's time for us to wrap up the episode, but I
Hey,
do want to give you one more opportunity to give amazing tips.
with my amazing tips. Well, first of all, I think the amazing tip was to say yes to you, Hoda. Sometimes you get an invitation and you're not sure, but if you have the least sense that the other person's of good faith and sharing your values, say yes. That's the very first thing. When you called, I just said, "Oh, I have to join you, Hoda." So that's actually the very first thing I want to say because I think that you represent what I'm talking about in the future. You've done amazing things yourself. So I'd like to just say that. Everyone knows this, but I'd like to say it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, and I just think to everybody, I don't think I've been coaching now for, gosh, it's more than 20 years. I actually think that we all have to deeply consider how to keep learning, that we have to really we need to want to coach the whole person, not just cognitively, not just somatically, not just emotionally, but the whole person. Because sometimes, we're worried about something. Okay, that's a cognitive phenomenon. Sometimes our body feels it and we can't even say it. That's the worst kind of loneliness. But how do we recognize when someone is somatically oppressed? And sometimes people are just, feeling alone now. Loneliness is one of the great hidden shames in our world today. So I say to people, keep learning and look at the very small acts of connection. And for every time you connect with another human being in coaching and in good effort, you will be rewarded more than you know. Because your presence is an intervention that makes a difference. I love to say from here in Canada, we can say in America, we can say the Native American in Canada, say First Nation, but Native American wisdom says that your presence carries original medicine that someone is waiting for. So I'd say to you, Hodette, me, and all of us, make sure that you do the work to bring your medicine to others.
Thank you so much for this wonderful wrapping up, Dorothy, and for your time today.
My joy.
This is it for Hoda's Career Info, the program where career professionals from across the globe join me to empower you to succeed. Our guest today on Hoda's Career Info was Dorothy E Siminovitch. You can connect with Dr. Dorothy on LinkedIn. Dorothy's term was awareness intelligence. Take the time to pause, re-listen to the definition of the term and the questions that Dorothy asks us, and let us know how easy was it for you to answer them. Remember that you can listen to Hoda's Career Info since it's also dropped as a podcast. To let me know if you're interested in an opportunity to talk about your work, you can send me a direct message on my website, rightcareerfit.com, where you can also sign up for my newsletter to stay up to date on the latest episodes. Please like, subscribe, share, and follow me on social media for more career info. I am your host, Hoda. Until next time, remember, your time is valuable. How are you spending it?